Hello and welcome to episode 47 of Little Big Knits. This is a podcast about knitting primarily, and my name is Selma. I'm coming to you from Ottawa, where I live with my family and our cat Yoda, who just had a super duper playful moment. But I've noticed over the last year that Yoda has become very camera shy. She doesn't mind having her picture taken, but as soon as she sees me on a screen or us on a screen talking to somebody, whether they're really there or not, she just doesn't want to have anything to do with it. So I don't know that we're going to have any more Yoda sightings unless I take a little video of her or something like that. So I'm coming to you from Ottawa, where we have a very snowy day, and I'll pop a little video up looking out my window and you can see all the snow coming down. It is still very, very wintry here in this part of the world, and really actually quite enjoying the snow this year, to be honest. I think that working from home, we get to see more of the daylight, and as a result, it doesn't feel as much of a drudgery as it normally would. I think, often, normally, if you're going to work every day, you'd be going to work in the dark and coming home in the dark. The days are also getting longer, so it's been quite lovely. So, hello. And in my Gertie cup today is a David's tea, an organic North African mint, which is actually a green tea that I quite like. Actually, when I bought it, I thought it was an herbal tea, and I was a bit disappointed because we wanted it in the evenings, but I've actually been enjoying drinking it in the mornings, so that's cool. A few people have asked me, and always ask me, about my lovely, lovely Gertie. I call her Gertie. It's really just a chicken mug, but when I got her, she needed a name immediately, and that was the name that came to her. She's made by Brown Bunny Pottery. I bought this mug at Rhinebeck. The potter doesn't have a huge online presence, but I do know that at least one viewer has contacted the potter and bought a mug. So I'll put the information down below should you be interested. And that reminds me to tell you that I am now posting show notes down below here in YouTube, as well as in the Ravelry group. I've been wanting to do that for a while. People have been asking about it. It's actually really, really easy to do, and then I just transfer them into Ravelry. This is way easier. So there you go. So you'll be able to find information about Gertie down there today. I also had some footage in the beginning of the video of things that people have asked about. So people have often asked about the painting behind me, so I put in a little bit of video, a close-up of this scene here. And then last time when I talked about how I store my shawls, people were suggesting getting a ladder, and I actually do have a ladder, so I put in a little bit of that footage as well of the ladder that we have, which is really just an old painter's ladder. Like, there's nothing very fancy about it. I have thought about perhaps upgrading to a sort of fancier ladder, but it's doing just fine. I actually thought about painting it at one point, but that's just never happened. It's just there. It's got some of our blankets. It's got my first crochet granny square on it, and a very, quite an old blanket actually, that was woven by my great aunts a long, long time ago, and another crochet blanket that a friend had made me. So there's just all kinds of stuff on there. So so that's some of what you would have seen in the early footage of the podcast. I don't know what else you saw, because I often decide some things before and some things after. So today, I'll be, of course, showing you my knits finished and works in progress. I've got some acquisitions, but we've also hit a milestone in the podcast of 10,000 subscribers. So I wanted to announce a giveaway, which I'll do after I've talked about my knitting. And but yeah, that's pretty darn exciting, I have to say, to have reached 10,000 subscribers. And so just in case you don't stick around, I just want to say thank you. Thank you for joining me, whether you've been around since the beginning, because I know that some of you have, or whether you just joined me recently. I know there have been a lot of people joining. So thank you so much if you've decided to subscribe and stick around and come about. come around every 3 weeks or so and check out what I'm doing. So thank you. And of course, and I'll also be mentioning, later on, a coupon code that we have, and I'll talk about that when I talk about some of the patterns that have come into my life recently. So yeah, so that's some of what we've got today. I also just wanted to quickly mention that we have our knit along, the Color Play Cal, which is all about different ways of playing with color. Everything beyond stripes. Stripes are not accepted if it's just plain stripes, but if they are mixed with different stitch patterns, whether it be mosaic or some sort of color work, whether it be intarsia or fair isle or double knitting, brioche, of course. So that is going strong in the Ravelry group. Lots of people are participating in that. I'm so thrilled to see that there are some people who are doing some color work for the first time. You can do it. Sometimes it's just a question of choosing a simple project, perhaps something not so big. If you are a sweater knitter already, perhaps choosing a simple 2-color yoke. There's lots of different ways to do it. Lots of projects have some brioche, not necessarily all brioche if you decide to do that. Yeah, so I'm really excited to see. As you know from my last episode called Crazy for Color Work or something like that, I really have had my mind full of color work ideas. It's been a lot of fun, and it's been so much fun to see what people are chatting about and posting in the Ravelry group. And I also wanted to mention that should you be a maker of some sort, whether it be yarn related or not, or would like to donate something to the prizes for the knit along, I would love to showcase what you have to offer, or to put some of your donations in the prizes for the knit along. So if you do want to do that, is that something that you'd like to do, please get in touch with me either on Instagram. I'm Selma Knits on Instagram and Ravelry, so you can get in touch with me in either of those 2 places. Thanks. So let's get on with the knitting, shall we? Well, why don't we talk about what I'm wearing, because that is my latest make. So you will have seen, I think I was on the body last time, and honestly, I became quite obsessive about knitting this sweater. I wanted to only knit on this sweater. I was going a little crazy for it. I really wanted to get to the color work and finish this baby, and I did. And here it is. I just love it. I have to say, I really like it. Now, I followed the instructions, 95%. I did something a little different up here, but I followed the instructions as far as, of course, knitting it bottom up, which is what the pattern was meant to be. I actually followed the lengths of the arms and the body, which I don't normally do. But I mentioned to you last time that I'm always a little nervous about knitting sweaters bottom up because I've had problems getting the lengths of the body and the sleeves right. And so I decided just to follow the pattern. Now, in the magazine, the sweater is quite a relaxed fit. It's sort of kind of a longer, relaxed fit, you can see there. And that's exactly what I have ended up with. And I have to say, I'm used to wearing slightly shorter sweaters these days, because that's really the fashion. And it's been a while since I've knit a sweater this long. So at first it took me a little while to get used to this, but I really, really like it now, and I'll show it to you in a moment. The sleeves also ended up a little long for my taste. They look fine here, but when I'm standing, they tend to come down a bit. So I've just automatically started folding that up. It was a lovely, lovely sweater to knit. As I said, I followed the instructions by knitting it bottom up, and then I joined in the round. When I was knitting the yoke, I was quite nervous that this was going to be way too big for me. And because of the construction, once you have all these stitches on the needle, it just becomes that much more cumbersome to try it on. So I didn't try it on until I got to about here, and I thought, oh my gosh, this is never going to fit. But in the end, it really does. So before I talk to you about what I did up here as a modification, I'll just show it to you. I think what I'll do is pop up a video because I'm not going to be able to show the whole thing to you. But as you can see, it's just got a super relaxed fit. It's just a very cozy little sweater. And I absolutely love it. This color work was so easy. Really easy. So if you do have some experience knitting sweaters, or even if you don't, I actually think that this would be a fairly good first sweater to make. The color work is so easy on it. As you can see, it's always got 2 colors only. And also there's a lot of 1x1 and very short color changes here. So they're very like long float. There are no long floats to deal with. So it's just extremely easy. As far as color work goes, I would say that this is about as potato chippy as it gets. It's just so incredibly easy, and you already get a taste of it when you're down here at the bottom of the body and the sleeves. So it's just great. And if you haven't done color work, you could easily just experiment and try doing some on your own. This is literally 2x2. So you do 2 of one color, 2 of the other color for 2 rows, and then you switch. I'm not, like that's just so darn easy. I don't mind sharing that. I won't share, of course, the rest of it. But if you're nervous about color work, you could really just cast some stitches on in the round with 2 colors and just practice. That is about as easy as it gets. It's really quite easy and fun. I loved this yoke so much that I really would like another one, because when I finished this, I thought, this was not the look I had in mind, and I had to wrap my head around that, and I really like it, and I've been wearing it for the last couple of days since I finished it, and I love it. But when I first saw it was with Ellie of Skein Deer, and she had made it in red and either a light gray or a beige. I think it was a light gray that she had in the color work, and I loved it. And I thought I would love to have a red one. So we'll see if that happens, but I think that my next one I would knit top down. I think that's totally doable, very easily reversed, and yeah, if I do it again. So what I did up here was they had the decreases kind of all in one shot, and I did them in 2 shots essentially. I just decreased a little bit more slowly, and I decreased again because the neckline was a little bit more open than I wanted it to be. So I took it back and did some more eliminating, just to eliminate an extra 12 stitches, I think, and that just pulled it in a little bit more. It's got a little bit of short row shaping back here, which is, well, right now when I'm sitting down, it's not so effective, but normally it brings up the back a little bit. Otherwise it would scoop in both directions. And yeah, it's really lovely. So that's my first make. And speaking of short rows, had some comments about what I said last time. People, sort of agreeing or finding that they really enjoy short rows and like to put it in different places. So yeah, I think that once you have some experience with short rows, you start to see where you like it and where you don't see the point of it. Maybe you do like it everywhere. I definitely like doing it up here. And actually the way it was done in this pattern was quite effective because the short row didn't come all the way around. So you really don't see it in the front. You only see it in the back. So yeah, it was great for that part of the sweater for sure. So that's my first finished object. And I realized I didn't even tell you. So this is the after party sweater. Is this going to be that kind of podcast today? This is the After Party sweater by Astrid Troland. It was in Line magazine number 6. This one here. Some of their patterns are now pay-for patterns, so you can check on Ravelry, especially some of the earlier editions. I don't know if this one is up there yet. And I made it in Studio Donegal tweed darny is the base. It's a fingering weight woolen spun tweed yarn from Studio Donegal. I got this last year, well, 2019, November, when I went to Ireland for the Ullen retreat with Kate of the Hawthorne Cottage Craft podcast and Emma of Woolly Mammoth Fibers. They hosted a retreat, and I went for that. And then Kate and I afterwards did a little road trip, and I got this in Studio Donegal. So actually, we've been having a knit along as part of that Ullen retreat, and so this is another entry for that knit along. Absolutely love the yarn. It's not very easily found in North America. I think there might be one store in the United States that carries it, but I really, really loved knitting this. It's beautiful, 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 beautiful yarn. And I ended up buying a Jamieson and Smith in this sort of minty gray green to go along with this. The Jamieson and Smith in their 2-ply, and it is the 1280 mix. So if you happen to look that up, it's kind of a gray, but it's got minty greens and lavenders going through it. I don't know if you're going to be able to capture any of that in this light, but both really nice. And it was really interesting because I now understand why this Jamieson and Smith yarn is used so much in color work, especially color work where there could be multiple colors and so forth. It's extremely sticky yarn. And I really understand now when people talk about yarn as being sticky. This is really sticky. It's quite amazing. And I think perfect for color work. So that's also something to consider. Perhaps if you are doing color work for the first time, this will be far more, I don't know, my impression is that this will be far more forgiving than perhaps doing color work with a superwash yarn. There used to be a bit of a no-no around doing superwash, using superwash yarn for color work. I think that's kind of been debunked at this point. I think that there are all kinds of colorwork sweaters out there with non-superwash and superwash. I do see though how something like this could really lend itself to making it a lot easier and easier to make it look good. I've never actually done color work with a superwash yarn, I have to say. I think all the color work I've done has been with non-superwash yarns. So I haven't tried that yet. So I don't know if what I'm saying really, really makes sense, but that's my sense. So really sticky yarn, perfect for something like this. And they were great, both great to work with. So my next finished object are the socks that I was working on last time. I think I already was partway up the second sock. So this is not your first time seeing them. I am very, very happy with these. And now that I'll have showed them to you on the podcast, I'll be taking them off the blockers and wearing them. So this is a pattern by Louise Tilbrook, and it is the Honeycomb Cables socks. And this was a pattern that was gifted to me by Jan, and thank you. And I finally used the pattern because I think she gave it to me about 3 years ago. And I really, really love the way these socks turned out. They are just absolutely beautiful. And the yarn has wonderful, wonderful stitch definition. This is the Socks Yeah by Coop Knits. And I had gotten this yarn at Edinburgh Yarn Festival. All these yarns that have come from trips. Anyway, one day we'll be able to travel again, I hope. So these are finished now, and we're just a slightly challenging knit. I would say it took a while to get used to this honeycomb cable, but I really enjoyed it after a while and have been wondering about incorporating it into like creating my own sock pattern using it. And it had an interesting rib, which I think I talked to you guys about last time. And then it has a little bit of the cabling on the back as well. So really lovely pair of socks. So those are my 2 finished objects for today. So what have I got for you as far as whips in progress? So I've got a couple of things that are coming along quite nicely and a couple of other things that are slight frustrations. So first, in this bag that I got at Christmas time by Antler and Acorn, I love this bag. It's so lovely. I have the sweater that I'm knitting for Alejandro. I shared this with you last time. I told you that I was going to have to redo the yoke part because I felt like I needed to go up a size, and I've done that, and I've tried this on him and it fits nicely. I haven't actually tried it on him since I divided for the sleeves and body. I think I'll go down a tiny bit more before I do that, so maybe tonight. But here is how it is looking at this point. So this is the Puntal sweater by Belén Fernández, who's also the person behind the Tejer en Inglés podcast, which I always enjoy. And it's a great Spanish-speaking podcast in case you are looking for one. So she designed this sweater. It's a unisex sweater. I don't know what was going on with my brain. I think I thought, oh yeah, I'll get there eventually. And so I didn't follow the instructions. I felt like I followed the instructions, but I think I inadvertently didn't. So I decided not to pull back and have been kind of doing my own thing along here, which is basically following her instructions, but just having to take it a little longer. I think my row gauge with this yarn may be a little bit off, but I didn't even bother to check, to be honest. I just thought, I'm just going to go along. If it works, it works. If not, I'll pull back. So I'm now on to the third and the last color. The rest of the sweater will be in this stunning green. And this was, so these two yarns are the Rosa Pomar Vovô Portuguese yarn, which is absolutely amazing. I would say her yarns, I've worked with two of them now. They're not soft and squishy yarns. They're squishy, but they're not soft yarns. They tend to be a little bit rustic. They are fully 100% Portuguese wool. And but I really like this one. I worked with the Mungo. I didn't love the Mungo as much as I like this one. This one I would buy multiple sweater quantities of this. It's very, very nice. This one is what was it? I think it was an Estelle Eco Tweed at DK that I got because I had gotten a cream for here and then I didn't like it. So I found this sort of oatmeal color and I think it works better. So the yarns are absolutely wonderful. The green is number 5 by Vovô. And the burgundy, I'm not 100% sure because I don't think I have the tag, or do I? Aha, let's see if I do. It's the number 7. So the burgundy is the number 7 and the green is the number 5. And I just absolutely, absolutely love this yarn and I'm really enjoying this pattern. And I'm now going down the body and it's going to be basic potato chip knitting here for the remainder of it. I will try it on to Alejandro tonight and hopefully it works well, but I think it does. I measured it yesterday and it seemed to be good. So this is my second, or I should say my first work in progress, but my second go at the sweater just because I hadn't chosen the right size the first go around for my gauge, which was slightly off from the pattern. So yeah, I don't think there's a whole lot else to tell you about this except that it's going well, and hopefully in the next couple of weeks or so, Alejandro will have a sweater. So one thing I wanted to tell you, I think I told you when I was telling you about the darning that I had done that I made, or had I? Anyway, I had made a sweater for Alejandro a couple of years ago, and I made it out of Harrisville tweed yarn, and he's really doing a number on that sweater. Like it's the ribbing is really falling apart, and I really do need to get to it and mend it. And he's been quite tough on that sweater. So when I finished this, I actually thought, oh, if this is too big, maybe Alejandro will fit into it because everything's a little long. But because this is also a tweed yarn and it's also woolen spun, so not that different from the Harrisville, I thought there's no way I'm giving him this sweater. He's going to destroy it. This yarn, I think, is really going to be able to hold up to his wear of sweaters. And I think that it's going to be a really good, solid yarn. So that's something for me to think about in the future when I knit him sweaters again, to make sure that I'm choosing yarns that can hold up to how he wears sweaters, because he just seems to be, he's just tough on them somehow. And he wears them a lot. Like the sweater I made for him, even though the ribbing is in tatters, he is wearing it anyway. He's like, oh, it doesn't really matter. And because it's woolen spun, it's not unraveling really quickly, but it's just kind of falling apart. And I think a woolen spun yarn for him is perhaps not the best idea. So I'm really expecting that this yarn will wear well with him. So that is what I have on the needles that I'm really enjoying working on. The other thing that I have on the needles is a new sock cast on. So when I finished the honeycomb cable socks, I went into, well, actually Alejandro went into my big satchel with my yarns that I'd put in for the year, and he picked out a pack of mini skeins that my friend Kate of the Hawthorne Cottage Craft podcast had given to me when she visited, I think, the first time. And these were minis from Fine Fish Yarns. I'll just show them to you. They're here in the pouch. They haven't all been wound, and there's a bit of a mess happening here. So there are this pink and blue and mint green, and then a brown and a slightly variegated gray-blue one there. So I am knitting a pair of socks with these. Oops, and one of them just went flying. And I had seen my friend Marta, who is Martushka Yarns, Martushka Knits, and has a podcast as well by the same name. She knit a pair of socks that had different kinds of ribbing on them. And so I thought, that's really fun. Let me see how that goes. So I've started to do a similar kind of thing. I've got a 3x1 rib going on there, and I've got a twisted rib going on there with the second color. And I'm not totally convinced that I'm enjoying this. I have to see. I might go back and just do the 3x1 rib all the way up the sock and just change the colors, and it becomes a little bit of a stripy type of thing. But I'm really enjoying, it's just fun. And again, the socks are something that just happen here and there. If I need to have something in my purse for 5-10 minutes, then, of knitting, then I put that in there. So these are going to take a while, but the yarn is absolutely lovely. I love all the colors. They're so, so pretty. So that's the other thing that I'm working on. And this is being housed actually in a bag that Kate had made for me. And I absolutely love it. It's made out of Irish linen. She had made these actually not only for me, but for everybody who had attended the retreat that I was at, that she hosted. And she made these wonderful bags for everybody. And I've got some pins on there as well. This is from Lee of Luli. A Luli podcast, the Stash Appreciation Society. This is a pin that Kate had given me, and then I think this is one that I had gotten online somewhere. So that is my second work in progress, and I would say that those are my two active works in progress. You may remember from a few podcasts ago that I was knitting a plain Westboro hat for my friend, and I was making this out of Kenzie yarn. Let's see if I have the tag here, because I don't actually remember what it was called. It was Kenzie by Haiku, which is a New Zealand merino, nylon, angora, alpaca, and silk noils yarn. And I really, really like the yarn. But when I was knitting the hat, I realized that I hadn't bought enough. I thought that one skein would be enough, but it wasn't. So I had to wait until the yarn store opened. There was also footage again of Wabi Sabi at the front of, or at the beginning of the podcast, and some of the same footage that I had last time, except there was a little extra footage as well, and I filmed that before lockdown. Lockdown has ended, but many stores, including Wabi Sabi and other yarn stores in the city, they're only offering curbside. But this store, which is called Woolen Things, and it's in the sort of east end of the city, they opened their doors. And so I thought, okay, I'm going to go get a second ball of this so that I can finish the hat because I'm on the crown. There's not a lot left, but I don't want to make this smaller. So I need to get another ball, but they had no more. So this work in progress is now going to get frogged, and I'm going to save this yarn perhaps for some color work at some point or something. So it's now going to be knit in, again, I'm going to start over in this felted tweed that I got at the shop, which is kind of a similar color. It's a little bit more green than this one. This has got a bit more of a teal to it. This is color, do we have a color on here? Color 158 by the Rowan Felted Tweed. And so I'll be starting that at some point soon. I may wait. We are getting kind of close to the end of winter. I'm not sure that there's any need for me to make it now. I might make it for next Christmas kind of thing. I might just wait a little bit. So that is a work in progress that is now going into the kind of frogging and restarting pile. Another work in progress that has gotten some attention but very little is the myrtle sweater that I've showed to you in the past. It's the 100%, I'm single-stranded mohair. The mohair is not 100% mohair, but it is only mohair and silk. It's not being double-stranded with anything. This is a pattern by Kate Davies that I'd started a couple of years ago, and I'm very, very slowly making my way down the sleeve. And I'm doing it slowly because I've got to say I'm not enjoying knitting this at this point. And I was quite devoted to it for a little while and was trying to get one stripe a night in there, and then it just kind of went by the wayside. So now I'm hoping that just even talking about it on the podcast will motivate me to get it done, because I think it's going to be lovely when it's finished. I think it's going to be really, really cute. But just the knitting, well, my phone suddenly told me that there wasn't enough storage on it. That's never happened to me before. So sorry about that. That got cut. I think I was talking to you about the myrtle sweater and just telling you that I was slowly making my way down the sleeves. And I think I am going to try and persevere and get this sleeve done before the next podcast. That is the goal I'm going to give myself. Let's see if I can live up to that, and then move on to the second sleeve. I think it's going to be an absolutely very, very pretty little sweater, and I would like to get it done. I don't like having things languishing like that, and usually when that happens, it means that I'm not going to finish it. It usually doesn't happen with a sweater. It usually happens with smaller items. But I don't like that to happen. So I'm going to give myself the goal to finish the sleeve before the next podcast. That's totally doable. So those are my works in progress, and hopefully I eliminated enough things from my phone so that I could actually continue recording. Before I talk about anything else, I wanted to announce the 10,000 giveaway. And I mentioned this already at the beginning of the podcast, that we have reached the milestone of having 10,000 subscribers. So thank you again. It totally warms my heart that people want to come back and watch the podcast and stick around and join in some of the activities and that we have in the podcast. And I'm really thinking about how to continue to increase the community in some way, not in terms of size, but in terms of engagement. So I'm thinking about that, thinking about how to do that. So we'll see where the podcast takes us over the next little while. But in the meantime, I would love to host a giveaway for this 10,000 subscribers. So I have received a lovely donation from Wabi Sabi, the footage you saw at the beginning, and the donation is from yarn by Alley Cat Yarns. So Judy, the owner of Wabi Sabi, offered this up as a prize for the giveaway. It is a beautiful fade set from a dark purple to a more lavender color. Absolutely stunning. And so thank you so much, Judy and Wabi Sabi, for this donation. They carry Alley Cat yarns and have a lovely selection of her yarns, actually. Alley Cat Yarns is dyed by Melissa, who is from Ottawa. So she lives just a few kilometers away from me and dyes up beautiful yarn. I've actually ordered some myself, and so you'll see more of it in the future. So in order to be eligible for this prize, what I would like you to do is to comment below. Any comment below will be considered an entry for the prize, and one comment, please, per person. If you decide that you want to add something, you can always edit your comment. And you can just comment about the podcast if you like, or about whatever you would normally comment about. But I've also got a prompt for you. And the prompt is, what has been your greatest surprise and or joy in your making? And I say making because although this is a knitting podcast, perhaps you're a weaver, a crocheter, a sewer, but what would you say has been your greatest surprise or your greatest joy in your making? And that is your prompt for below, and I look forward to reading all your entries. And again, if you don't want to answer that for whatever reason, you're welcome just to say hello down below, or make another kind of comment if you like. Okay? So, and then what I'll do is that'll be open until the next time I podcast. So I'll be drawing for a winner for the next time for this wonderful trio of yarns, which would make a stunning huge shawl or a sweater. This is enough for a sweater. In fact, this sweater took 3 skeins of the Darnie, which is a fingering weight yarn with about the same yardage as this. So, you know, it's totally could go into a sweater, or it could go into a large shawl, or it could be 3 pairs of socks or a hat or anything. So there you go. That is our giveaway for the 10,000 subscribers. And so I also just wanted to mention a couple of other little things. I got a couple of patterns. One was gifted to me by a viewer, so thank you very much. And it is the Stripes pattern by Andrea Mowry. And I think I mentioned that I was thinking about making it for Advent next year, and then somebody very kindly gifted it to me. So thank you very much for that. And it is very likely going to be knit next Advent. I am already thinking about Christmas. This does not usually happen to me, but somehow this year, perhaps the staying at home, perhaps the wonderful hygge that came around with Christmas this year, has got me thinking about Christmas already. The other couple of patterns that came into my life, well, I actually purchased them, are 2 patterns by Olivia Villarreal, who is also known as This Handmade Life. And she is a wonderful designer of socks. And I got 2 patterns recently. I got her Dreaming of Spring pattern, which I'll put up here, which is a lovely sort of feather and fan sock pattern. And I also got her collection, because I think there are different stitch patterns in it, called Flora. Sorry, I needed to take a sip there. So Olivia is a wonderful and quite prolific sock designer, and designs her socks from the bottom up as well as from the cuff down, so from the toe up or cuff down. And she has wonderful photographs of her makes. I've been following her on Ravelry for quite a long time, I have to say, because I've always enjoyed the pictures of her project. She just takes really lovely pictures. Taking pictures of knitting projects is not always easy, so I always appreciate when somebody has really nice photography like that. And Olivia has offered a coupon code for her patterns, so please go and check her out. It's a coupon code for 25% off of her patterns, and the code is LittleBigKnits25. So I'll put it here, and that is until March 20th. So thank you so much, Olivia, for that discount for the viewers, and I hope, viewers, that you will take advantage of that and go see her sock patterns, because they're really lovely. And then that is about it for patterns that have come into my life recently. I did want to talk about some acquisitions that came in. So I think it's safe to say that Selma has been doing some online shopping. And my first stop was at Farm to Cables. This is an online shop hosted by Dale, and I have bought yarn from her before and knit with some, and some of it's still waiting to be knit with. And I'd been on her shop site for, I don't know, so many times for quite a while, and then I thought, that's it. It took me a long time to decide what I wanted to buy because there was so much that I wanted to get. Dale hosts primarily yarns from Europe, and some of them are Norwegian. So she's got the Hillesvåg yarns. She's got the Hillesvåg Sølje, the Hillesvåg Tinde, and I think also the chunky weight, I can't remember what it's called, and then this undyed, which is called Vilje. I think Vilje means wild, does it not, in Norwegian? Anyway, so I actually bought a sweater quantity of this natural undyed, because I want to make the Carleen sweater by Whitney Hayward, I believe it is. I'll put a picture up here. And I would like to do it in cream, and I bought this as a potential contrast color for the color work. Don't know when that's going to happen, because I'm not going to cast this on right away, but I've been wanting to make that sweater for quite a while. I've had the pattern for quite a while. So yeah, so I got a sweater quantity of the cream, and then I got this as a potential for the color work. I also got a skein of this Petite Lamb's wool in this pink color, because I am planning on making a Christmas sweater that would be a sort of a burgundy red with pink and cream. So I bought this as a potential for the cream portion of it. This is the Petite Lamb's wool by Biche et Buche. I was also extremely curious because I know that a lot of people have knit with it, and it seemed like it could be a good pink. I think it may be. I haven't actually really sat down and swatched yet, but that will probably go into my Vinterfjell sweater, which I'm hoping to make probably in November. I'm planning early for Christmas, because then I'll have the Advent knitting in December. So I'm hoping to make the Vinterfjell to have it for Christmas as well. So that's going to go into that. And then I also got this sock stick, which is going to be awesome because I am always having to try my socks on. So I'm hoping to get the measurements with this and then know where I'm supposed to go with things. When do I start the gusset? When do I start, the heel? How long do I want the cuff? So I'm hoping to be a little bit more methodical about my sock knitting so that it's not always guesswork and having to try on all the time. So I got this lovely sock stick from Dale. And yeah, so that was one purchase that, and there was something else from her too. I also got some of this petite silk mohair from Biche et Buche. And you will recall my Silver Forest sweater that I had on the last podcast. I have leftovers of the yarn, of the teal, the main color. I have enough to make the Vertices Unite, but I think I will make a hat with the rest of it. So I got that. My next purchase was from a very Canadian as well, because Farm to Cable is here in Ontario. From Les Arts Textiles du Témiscouata. Les Arts Textiles du Témiscouata. So this is a Canadian dyer in Quebec. I'm not sure exactly where in the province of Quebec. And they have amazing stuff. This is a non-superwash sock yarn. It is a combination of 40% BFL, 40% merino, and 20% nylon. So the BFL and the superwash are, the BFL and the merino are non-superwash, and then it does have nylon for some reinforcement. So I have gotten 2 of these. One of these will be for me, and then the other one I'm going to be saving as a prize for the podcast. So yeah, I'm just very excited about these yarns. They're both incredible colors, and they really have beautiful, beautiful dyeing. And I was so impressed when I actually got them, because I was like, these are just really, really, there's just a real depth of color and really beautiful. So I'll be linking all of these things down below, as you know. And then the last thing I want to show you today was not exactly buying yarn, but giving my yarn to a yarn cranker, a sock cranking service. So I actually know the people who have created this service, which is called Homebody and Knitter's Little Helper Sock Tube. So you can basically give them sock yarn, whether you've wound it in a cake or not, because they'll wind it for you for a small fee, and they will create a sock tube, which goes on and on and on, because that's the double of it. So I can easily get 2 pairs of socks out of this, and essentially I'll have to add the toes, the heels, which will be cut-in heels, and the cuffs. So I got 2 of them out of 2 yarns that I had in my stash. This is the Fawn and the Fox in her Spumoni colorway. I'm not sure that she's dyeing yarn anymore, but I got this a long time ago. And I'm really happy with how this turned out. It's just beautiful. So I'm really looking forward to making myself a pair of socks, and then probably a pair of socks for somebody as a gift. And each of the tubes comes with a little progress keeper, which is really sweet. And then this yarn here, which was actually a gift from my friend Patricia, it came in 2 smaller cakes. So I got 2 tubes, which will make it actually easier for making socks out of. This is Mustache Yarns, but I don't remember what the colorway is, I'm afraid. So that's going to become 2 fun pairs of socks as well. And so what I really love about this is often, well, first of all, it's going to simplify some of my sock knitting, which is kind of fun. I mean, I enjoy sock knitting, but sometimes we end up with more skeins than we know what to do with. But what I really love about this is that you're really going to get 2 pairs out of a skein. I find what happens is that when I knit a pair of socks out of a skein, although I could make a pair with the second half, I rarely do. So this way, the whole skein gets used up. And yeah, I just thought this was really fun. It's a new business, so I also wanted to support them. Local people who also actually basically live in the neighborhood, and they work out of their home and create this lovely, lovely service. So they're on Etsy, and I'll put this down below should you be interested in taking advantage of such a service as well. So those are the purchases I'm sharing with you this time. Yeah, so yeah, and then other than that, that is really the end of all the knitting content for the podcast. The month of February has been a month of really a lot of knitting, a lot of walking outside. We've had really quintessentially perfect winter weather. We had some really cold days, but mostly it's just been beautiful. There's been a lot of snow. It's just coming down now. And yeah, it's been lovely. There's been lots of knitting. There's been some watching of movies. There's been some watching of shows. I'm into Schitt's Creek these days, which I'd never seen. And as I said, lockdown ended, so some businesses have opened and movie theaters have opened. So I actually went to a movie theater. They had everything taped off, so you could only sit in certain areas, and you had to wear, well, you didn't have to wear your mask when you were sitting in your seats, but there were very few people and everybody was very far apart. So it was actually really, really well done. And it was a repertory theater, so I went to see Casablanca. I've never seen Casablanca on a big screen, and it was a real treat, I have to say. What a different experience to see a movie like that on a big screen. the cinematography in that film is just amazing, and the details. And it was just so, so good to see on a big screen. Really, really glad I did that. And that really felt like a treat because I haven't been to the movies in over a year. So yeah. And what else? Oh, I just finished a book called The Book of Joy. And it is essentially it's nonfiction. It is essentially an account of a conversation, a week-long visit between the Dalai Lama and Desmond Tutu, the Archbishop Desmond Tutu, along with a writer whose name is completely I'm blanking out on right now. I can't remember his name, but I'll put it down here. So the three of them work together to have these conversations around joy. And then he has put the book together, this writer, and I listened to it as an audio book. And it was so wonderful to listen to, I have to say. Obviously, the Dalai Lama and Desmond Tutu are not the two narrators, but they chose narrators that had similar accents to them. So it was just really wonderful to listen to. And I absolutely love the Archbishop Desmond Tutu. I could listen to him all day. And so listening to this book alone was a source of joy. And it's a really great book. I mean, it talks about finding joy through frustrations, through fear, through anger, through pain. And it was just very inspiring in many ways. And hearing the parts where the Dalai Lama, who's a Buddhist, and obviously Desmond Tutu, who's an archbishop, coming from very different faith traditions, and how their ideas converge, and in places where they saw things a little differently, and they have a lovely, lovely friendship that came through in the book. I just absolutely adored it. And I called this podcast a masterpiece in the making because there was a line in the book where Desmond Tutu said that, and it just made me stop. I was walking and I just thought, a masterpiece in the making. That is what we are. And that is what we do as well. I just thought in the knitting context, it just made so much sense. I thought we are in the process of making masterpieces. And even if a piece is a failure, it's part of the process, isn't it? We are here, and I think sometimes we can be a bit hard on ourselves when things don't work out quite the way they should, but that is part of everything becoming a masterpiece. So that is where the inspiration for the title of the podcast came from. And I just thought it applied so beautifully to knitting as well as to our own lives. And I just absolutely adore this book. I honestly, if you are interested in listening to it or reading it, I'm sure it'll be an enjoyable listen for sure. I loved listening to it. So that was really the only book I read in the last 3 weeks, which is a little unusual, but it got, as I said earlier, very, very cold, and I actually didn't go out for a couple of days, and I tend to listen to my books when I'm walking, and I did a little bit less walking in the month of February than I usually do. So that is the book that I got through. I've been struggling to decide what to read next, because I just didn't know if I wanted to continue listening to nonfiction, if I wanted to listen to fiction, and what kind of fiction. So I'm not 100% sure what I'm going to read next. I have a book called The Guest List, which a few people have highly recommended. It's a mystery. I'll see if I start listening to that, but it could be something else as well. So yeah, and then I also had a question from somebody asking if I would mention podcasts that I enjoy. And I have to say, I have struggled with that question a little bit because I enjoy so many podcasts. And I just thought, where would I even begin? But certainly I would tell you that I've mentioned, and what I'm going to do, and I did last time, is anytime I mention podcasts, during my conversations here in this podcast, I will be putting them down below so that you have podcasts that you can refer to. So I think last time I mentioned Espace Tricot, for example, Hawthorne Cottage Craft. That is one that I watch every single time because it's hosted by my friend Kate. So the moment it comes on, I want to watch it. I also mentioned to you this time Martushka Yarns, so that'll be down below. And so those are some podcasts that I watch regularly. And I think what I'll do is sort of start mentioning them here and there, and I will post them down below when I do. I think that if I started listing through all the podcasts that I watch, I think that would be a lot. But yeah. And perhaps if you want to add a comment down below, you could also add a podcast that you enjoy in addition to the prompt for what has been your greatest surprise or joy in your making for the 10,000 subscriber giveaway. So I think I'm going to stop there. I've got a noisy teenager who's just woken up and does not realize that I'm podcasting. Should we listen to his conversation? I think not. I'll see you next time. Take good care, and we'll see you sometime in March. Take care. Bye-bye. And it looks like a little Yoda, the whole time that I was podcasting, was right behind me. Yoda. Hello. Hello. Hi. She's like, I didn't want to be on the video. I told you.